Hi, Hebrew Hearts family. My name is Daniel. This is Jamie. We want to share a little bit about our story. The reason why is because we want you to know how important it is to realize that we spend so much time striving, looking for that perfect person, setting all this criteria. We are orchestrating our own path and we leave no room for the Father to work on our lives. So we want to convey to you that the Father has a plan, and we need to have the faith to trust His plan. And so we're hoping in sharing our story that you will be able to see that we have an artist, we have a creator, we have a conductor who is conducting a symphony. He is building a story for us that we couldn't possibly build on our own. And if we let Him, He works masterpieces. So, in the part of our story, we're going to start with where Jamie was before she really knew me, before we had any significant contact whatsoever, and just let her share who she is in life and where she is with where she was before all this happened. So, go ahead, Jamie.
Well, before I knew Daniel, um, I was in I was in a place where I didn't have any value. I didn't have any friends. I didn't have any support system. I felt lost in a world all by myself. I felt a lot of shame. The shame coming from a lot of abuse in my past, and I felt empty. That I wasn't worthy. I wasn't worthy of being loved, and that forced me into hiding where I felt safe, where I felt it was important for for people not to see me. I was at that point placed in the Hebrew Hearts as an admin, and that put me in a position where I had to be seen. I was forced to be seen. By being seen, I was able to offer people support and encouragement, offer them prayer, offer them advice, and I was seen and I felt respected. And I felt a lot of validation coming from those relationships that I had built as being an admin in the group. But regardless of all of that, I was still hiding and still full of shame and still wearing that mask so that people couldn't see who I was. By being an admin in the Hebrew Hearts group, I also built some relationships. And one of my dear friends, she she was the first one that spoke life into me. She told me that I had value and that I was worthy, that I was loved, and that I wasn't alone. She helped me to come out of hiding, and that the shame wasn't mine. That shame that I was feeling, the shame that I had my entire life, that I was holding on to, that I thought was mine, that it was my responsibility, was not my shame. And I was able to start shedding that. And I walked through healing and deliverance from people that I had known in Hebrew Hearts that became very, very dear friends of mine. And within that healing and deliverance, I was able to have that mask come off and people could see me.
So, while all that was happening, I had my own walk. And this is the beauty of the way the Father orchestrates things. I had last summer decided I was going to go on a 2 week road trip. I hadn't seen my parents and I I needed to be alone. I had some serious healing from past wounds and traumas. And so I decided I took 2 weeks off of work and I just went. I had people ask me, well, where are you going to be by this night? I had no idea and I didn't care. I was just going. And the part of this trip, I was praying and I asked my friends to pray for breakthrough for me because I needed healing. And so that was part of where I was going. And I would camp, I would go, I would at the end of the day, I'd find a place, set up a tent, and move on the next day. No agenda, just being. And the first contact with a friend of mine, I had a friend of mine, his name was Hugh, it doesn't matter, but I stayed at his house, and I had ministered to him in the past. I had encouraged him in the past, and I continued to do that. Hugh was, we both were traumatized by things his father had done, but he was physically abused terribly, and he would hide at my house. So we had this connection, this depth. Well, so that whole Friday night, as I ministered and encouraged him, because I knew where he had come from and I had witnessed some of that. The next morning, Saturday, we went out on his porch, beautiful Arizona desert, and I spent some time praying with him. I asked him, hey, do you want to pray? He said, yes. I was done praying, and then Hugh started ministering to me. And it was profound. And in all reality, for the first time in my life, I had someone who saw me, who saw my soul, who saw my value, who appreciated me. And he just kept pouring and pouring into me. And this is a man I saw in elementary and middle school. I hadn't seen for years. We met one other time after that, and then hadn't seen him for years, but we still knew each other. And I was so ministered, so loved, so appreciated, so seen. It overwhelmed me. I'm driving off. I'm on my way to see my parents that same day. And I texted him and I thanked him. I thanked him because, I told him, you were the first person I know who saw that I had value. And it was rich. I stayed with my parents for a few days, ministering to them. There were some healing things between them that needed to happen, some words that needed to be spoken. And I was done. My job was done. My goal was done. My trip, it was just return trip home. And I was going to take my time. So I went from West Central Arizona up north to Albuquerque. And I stayed at a bed and breakfast there, and I relaxed for a couple days just to soak the sun up. And I had a friend call me up, sent me a text. We had some dialogues, and he said, hey, are you anywhere near Dallas? And it's like, no, I'm not even close to Dallas. Why would you think that I'm in Dallas or near Dallas? He says, well, I have a friend, and she's been hurting, she's been struggling, and I just was hoping I could send someone to give her a hug. And we're talking, and I'm looking at my phone, and it's 9 hours away, and I just sit there and think, what the heck? Okay, yes, I can go to Dallas. In an instant, my mind changed. I was like, not a problem whatsoever. So I drove 9.5 hours. I met her at a restaurant. She was the waitress. I ordered dinner. And once she got off, we went out, had a beer, and I had a chance to minister to her soul. And I was happy to do that. We left, gave her a hug, blessed her, prayed for her. It was a good evening. 3 o'clock in the morning, I found a hotel, stayed the night, and off I was going. Well, one of our other Hebrew Hearts admins lives in Dallas, so hey, I'm in town. You want to see me? So we went and visited, had a great time, finished the evening with dinner, and I had shared how I had initially considered seeing Jamie during my 2-week road trip, but she was 5 hours out of the way, so why would I do that? Well, it dawned on me, because I don't know Texas. I was in Dallas. Hey, by the way, how far is Jamie from here? 3 hours. Well, I just driven 9, so why wouldn't I go see Jamie? So I told this person, I'm just going to knock on her door and say, hi. And the cringe on her face, like, all right, yeah, I know you're not supposed to do that with women. So I didn't. Went south, headed towards Houston, but I decided, well, check in. And I was like, okay, I'm going to text her. And I sent her a message, hey, Jamie, I'm headed to Houston. I want to come see you. And you would think, wow, that's nice. It was like, no. Wait, what? And it's like, no. Well, Jamie, can't I, even for 10 minutes, just to pray with you? And I had never seen her, never met her, saw her on some video chats, but I thought, surely I can pray. 10 minutes? She said, no, I am not at a point. I do not want to see anyone. No. And I was hurt. Literally, I was hurt. It's like, dang. But then I realized, oh, backing up during my dinner with this other friend, it's like I had heard that Jamie was struggling. And I said, you know what? I was on my road trip for breakthrough for me, but guess what? I'm going for breakthrough for 2. And that was my sincere prayer. So now it's like I have this calling to see Jamie, and Jamie says no. How do I obey God and how do I honor Jamie at the same time? That's part of that hurt, is how can I do what I'm not allowed to do? And you know what the Father said? He said, go. Okay. What then? You don't have to see her. You just have to go. Your obedience, I told you to go, because he gave me this vision of going this way, then quick return. It's like I was not released to do that return. So I had to go. He said, like Jericho, walk around her block 7 times and pray. And that's what I did. So I got up in the morning. I'm starting to get weepy. I got up in the morning and I started heading. And the Father gave me words to say to Jamie that I knew she would never hear. But I spoke them, and I'm weeping. And you have to know, I don't cry. I don't weep. But I was crying and I was weeping as I was speaking words of healing, freedom, release for a woman I never met. I was driving 3 hours, utterly broken, empty. I had no more words to say, and then he said, move. So he would give me these motions to do. I'm driving with my knees and I'm holding just like this, not against my chest, but just as if I'm holding a head against my chest. And motions of care. And I'm driving down the freeway doing these motions because the Father's telling me, show her physically healing, touch her physically without touching her, healing. I had already spoken words that she would not hear, and now I was holding her, accepting her in all her state while I'm driving. I am overwhelmed. I am prayed out. I'm moved out. I'm driving. And all of a sudden I realize the breakthrough I prayed for me, I received. I had things healed. The Father taught me things. He taught me that I was carrying a burden of shame for something that happened to me. And I didn't own that. So then I could walk in freedom. I no longer needed to live a life of penance because that's what I was doing. And then I realized I didn't hate my ex. My ex-wife had betrayed me beyond, not sexually. She had brought shame to me. She accused me of evil things, and the anger was gone. It moved from anger and hatred to pity. And I didn't even ask for that, but the Father ordained that. So I'm exhausted. I get to Houston. I get to Jamie's block, and I park as far away from her block as I can imagine. And I start walking around her block. I don't have any more prayers, not a one. I don't have any more motions but walking, so all I did was sing praises. And I'm walking around her block, and I'm walking around her block. I get to a point where, was that 6 or was there 7 times around? Well, I'm going to walk one more time just to make sure. And I walked around her block 8 times. And the release the Father gave for me. Now realize, I had no agenda. Jamie was not someone I was interested in. There was no love, no desire. It was just a calling. And the Father said, okay, you obeyed me. That's what I asked you to do. And I was released immediately. I got in my car and I drove home. Took me a couple days. Life went on. Mission accomplished. And I had no idea what was going on at the same time. So, your turn.
Well, that happened on a Friday. I didn't know. I had no idea because I had told Daniel not to come. So I assumed that he did not come. And that day was a very difficult day for me. And of course, not knowing why, I was so frustrated. I was irritable. I was short-tempered. Very, very pissy. I was not kind to my family. And I didn't know why. Something was off. Something was off in my spirit. I didn't know why. I didn't know until that night that Daniel had come. And when I found out, I was very angry. I was, oh my goodness, I was so angry. I felt betrayed. I felt like he had violated me. And I ended up talking to a friend about it. And I was so angry. I was crying. I was so angry. I just kept crying. I was talking to him. And as I was talking to him, he was helping me to ground me in my emotions and realize what Daniel had done. And I went from crying, from feeling so much anger, to knowing that the only word at the time I could think of was the sweetest thing that anyone had ever done for me. But I realized that it was selfless, it was loving, and literally life-changing for me, what he did when he walked around my neighborhood without me knowing. It was just, it was very overwhelming. Very, very overwhelming to know that, like, when I found out and I was able to be in touch with that side of knowing that it was selfless and loving. I'd never met Daniel, so I had nothing to base this on with we'd only been admins together. Never met him. That love that I felt, I know, like, that was the Father's love. That was the Father working through Daniel. He was a vessel for the Father, and that love that I felt came directly from the Father. That was pretty amazing. That was pretty amazing.
So we're sharing this. This is the beginning. This is a first video. We're going to share more. But we want you to understand that when you define every step for what you want in a relationship, when you define exactly what your requirements are in a spouse, that you are not leaving room for the Father to move. And we're asking you, because what we're having now, what we're experiencing now, oh, don't get us wrong, we've had some struggles. We both are damaged in many respects. We both have triggers, and we've both triggered each other in various ways. But if we know that the Father has ordained this, then we need to push through it. And when I don't have the strength that I want to give up, Jamie has had the strength, and she has fought for me. When Jamie doesn't have the strength, doesn't feel like she can press on, I have to have the strength to fight for this. What we're doing is not convenient. What we're doing is not easy. Long distance relationships are hard as hell. Vulnerability, openness, but most importantly, obedience and listening and giving opportunity for the Father to work in our lives is most important. So that's what we want you to know when you're looking back at all the questions that we ask and all the things that happen, and you're setting all these criteria. Oh, I would know, not this, not that. Well, maybe you should say, Father, send the person to me. And I'll tell you right now, what's happened between us has never happened to me before. I didn't have that mentality of Father, send someone. But he used me to minister to someone else, and in so doing, capturing me. It's his work, not ours. He is the artist, we are the clay, and we let him work. Anything else?
No.
So we'll catch you up. Like I said, the story continues, and there's still a lot to tell. So we'll come back when we can and tell you more. Shalom. Blessings.
Shalom.
We pray that the Father teaches you to rest in him. Amen.
Amen.